My brother humiliated my 10-year-old son in front of everyone, then regretted it. Family dinners aren't supposed to turn into lessons about failure. But that night, mine did. My 10-year-old son, Eli, was showing his school project, a tiny cardboard solar system held together with glue and hope. Everyone was clapping until my own brother leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said, "Kid, don't get too proud. Your dad's a failure. That's why you'll always be poor." The room went silent. Forks froze midair. Eli's smile collapsed into confusion. And me? I smiled like people do when they're too shocked to find anger. In that moment, I learned sometimes strangers aren't the ones who teach your children cruelty. Sometimes it's family. If you were me, what would you have done? Stay quiet for the sake of peace? Or stand up for the kind of respect money can't buy? My name is Rachel. I am 35 years old, from Dallas. I used to think strength meant keeping everyone happy. That night proved silence doesn't protect peace, it protects insult. Let me take you back a few hours before that dinner. Mark, my husband, was fixing Eli's project, carefully gluing the rings around cardboard Saturn like it was made of glass. He wasn't a rich man, but he was a steady one, a mechanic who built his own garage from scratch. "Looks perfect," he said. Eli grinned. "Do you think Uncle Aaron will like it?" Aaron, my older brother. The family's walking LinkedIn profile. 5-bedroom house, investor club membership, and that tone that made everything sound like a TED Talk on success. Mom loved him. "He worries because he cares," she'd say. But caring shouldn't feel like being measured. Around 6 p.m., we arrived at Mom's place with our casserole and polite smiles. Aaron's Lexus was already parked out front, polished like his shoes. He greeted us with that half-pung people give when they're already looking past you. "Hey, little sis, still baking on weekends?" "I like it," I said. He chuckled. "Yeah. Must save a lot on catering." Mark squeezed my hand under the table later to keep me calm. We'd promised each other no fights tonight, especially not in front of Eli. Dinner started fine. Cousins joked. Mom told old stories. The TV hummed in the background. Then Aaron turned to Mark. "So, how's life at the garage? Still doing those small jobs?" Mark smiled politely. "Yeah. Keeps me busy. We actually opened a second bay." Aaron laughed, short and sharp. "Nice. Guess you're moving up from bicycles to real cars now." Everyone chuckled uncertainly. Mark just nodded. He's too good at swallowing disrespect. And then came the moment that changed everything. Eli brought out his project, proud as ever. He said, "This is my solar system. Dad helped me build it." Aaron leaned back, sighed loudly, and said, "Kid, maybe next time let me help. Your dad's a failure, that's why you'll always be poor." The sound that followed wasn't silence. It was disbelief in the shape of quiet. Eli blinked, like he didn't understand the words. Then his little shoulders dropped. Mark stood slowly. "Come on, buddy," he said gently. "We'll load the car." Eli nodded, trying not to cry, clutching Jupiter in his hand. After they left, I sat there, hands shaking under the table. Mom whispered, "He didn't mean it that way." I looked at her. Then, how did he mean it? She had no answer. And my brother? He poured himself another drink, scrolled his phone, said, "Somebody had to tell the truth." For years, I'd let his arrogance roll off me. But now he'd spoken a curse over my child, and I realized curses don't end until someone refuses to repeat them. When I got home that night, Eli was asleep on Mark's chest, clutching the cardboard model like it could protect him. Mark whispered, "He's fine. Kids forget." I shook my head. Not when the insult comes from someone they're told to respect. He sighed. "Leave it, Rach. Fighting with Aaron never changes him." "Maybe not," I said. "But maybe it could change what Eli remembers." I didn't sleep. I kept seeing my brother's face, smug and sure, as if success gave him permission to humiliate. By dawn, I knew silence wasn't an option. Tomorrow, I'd remind Eli who his father really was. And maybe remind my brother what real success looks like. Because the next time I saw Aaron, I wasn't planning to shout. I was planning to show him. The morning after that dinner, sunlight didn't feel warm. It felt like a spotlight on everything we were pretending not to feel. Eli sat at the breakfast table tracing circles around his cereal bowl. He wasn't eating, just whispering the same phrase over and over. Uncle Aaron said Dad's a failure. Mark froze by the sink. In that tiny moment, his shoulders fell like the words weighed more than the world. I reached across the table, touched Eli's hand. "Baby," I said softly, "failure means someone stopped trying. Your dad never stopped." He looked at me, serious beyond his 10 years. So he's not poor? I smiled, though it hurt. No, we just measure wealth differently. He didn't say anything else. 10-year-olds don't always argue, but you can see when they don't believe you yet. Mark left for work early that day, earlier than usual. Later, when I went to his garage to drop off lunch, I found him fixing cars alone with earbuds in. He didn't hear me come in, so I heard him talking under his breath. Failure, huh? Then why do people keep coming back to me? The sound tore me in half. People like Mark don't yell when they're insulted, they bleed quietly. That night, after Eli went to sleep, I said, he can't get away with this. For Eli's sake, we need to set something straight. Mark sighed. Rachel, your brother's addicted to being right. Fighting him will just feed his habit. Maybe, I said, or maybe it'll starve his ego a little. He chuckled, shaking his head. You've got that look that means I should just get out of the way. You know me too well. By Wednesday, an idea had built itself in my mind. Aaron only valued what made headlines, numbers, applause, validation. So I decided to show him something public, but not the way he expected. We planned an open garage day for the neighborhood, free safety checks, free air, free advice. Mark was hesitant. We don't have time for that kind of charity right now. Then we'll make time. Not for him, for Eli, I said. Eli overheard and jumped right in. Can I help paint signs? I winked. Absolutely. Just don't spell failure anywhere on them. He laughed, and for the first time since that dinner, I saw the light come back to his face. The next few days were chaos in the best way. Mark's coworkers spread the word. Eli hand-painted a big cardboard banner, fixing cars, building kindness. He added a little sun in the corner, the same one from his school project. Saturday morning, the street smelled like barbecue and motor oil. Neighbors started arriving with their cars. Kids on bikes, older folks walking with gratitude in their hands. Mark worked like a machine, smiling, teaching, sweating, laughing. Eli stood beside him, handing out screwdrivers with the pride of a tiny assistant manager. I handled the food table, talking to people, listening to compliments about Mark's patience and honesty. Every thank you felt like undoing one insult. But the best part came mid-afternoon, a familiar engine hum I didn't expect to hear. A black SUV parked right beside the crowd. Out stepped my brother, Aaron, wearing the same confidence he wore at that dinner. He scanned the crowd, sunglasses gleaming, trying to figure out if he'd just walked into a trap. Then he saw me. Open garage day, he said, voice full of that old sarcasm. Community thing, I answered. You should come look, it's our version of networking. He laughed. Just hope you're not doing this to prove something. I smiled. No, to remind something. He stayed a minute, watching Mark help a teenage boy fix a flat tire and explain how engines breathe like lungs. For once, I caught Aaron's eyes softening the way pride cracks just before it admits admiration. When the crowd thinned, he walked over. So, this is your grand gesture? He asked. Not grand, I said, just genuine. He looked down for a second, then muttered, Didn't mean to upset Eli, you know. Yes, you did, I said quietly. But you didn't mean to watch him believe it. He frowned, trying to decide if I was right. Maybe for the first time, he didn't have a comeback ready. That evening, when we closed up, the last customer left saying, You folks should charge triple best service around. Mark smiled, wider than I'd seen in years. Eli threw his hands up. Dad, you're famous now. Mark laughed. That's the only fame I ever wanted. Later at home, I tucked Eli in. He said, Mom, can I be like Dad when I grow up? Only if you promise to be even kinder, I replied. He nodded seriously. Then I'll try real hard. I turned off the light, whispered to myself, You already are, kid. Downstairs, Mark poured me some tea. Your brother stayed quiet the whole time. Maybe he learned something. Maybe, I said. But even if he didn't, our boy saw everything he needed to. He smiled. So you still think silence is agreement? Absolutely, but so is action. Because the next time we saw Aaron, he wasn't smirking anymore, he was asking for advice, and not the kind you find in business books. A week after the Open a Garage event, life felt lighter. Eli hummed while doing homework, Mark whistled at work, and even I stopped replaying that dinner in my head. But change, real change, always knocks quietly before walking in. Sunday afternoon, Aaron showed up at our house without calling first. I spotted his car from the window, the same black SUV, this time covered in dust like it hadn't been washed in weeks. When he walked in, his face looked different. Still proud, still Aaron, but tired in places he usually hid behind arrogance. "Hey," he said softly. I hope it's okay I stopped by." Mark nodded from the couch. "Sure, coffee's fresh." I folded my arms cautious. "To what do we owe the honor?" He exhaled. "You were right. About a lot of things." I didn't answer. Not yet. I'd learned that silence makes truth fall out faster than questions do. Aaron kept talking. "A partner at my company just got arrested for fraud. The news hit this morning. Stock prices crashed, people panicked. Everything I built looks shaky now." Mark poured him coffee anyway. "I'm sorry, man. That's rough." Aaron looked at him, really looked, maybe for the first time, and sighed. "I used to think people like you settled, but now I see maybe you just built something that can't sink." Eli came downstairs, rubbing his eyes. "Uncle Aaron?" He blinked like he couldn't believe seeing him again. Aaron smiled carefully. "Hey, champ. How's school?" "Good," Eli said. "Dad and I are making a boxcar engine. Want to see?" Aaron glanced at me for permission, then followed him to the garage. I stayed inside, standing by the window as laughter trickled out from the garage. Cautious laughter, but laughter nonetheless. When they came back in, Eli was beaming. "Uncle Aaron said I could show my project at his office next time." My eyebrows lifted. Aaron nodded softly. "Just thought some of my guys could use a reminder about what real curiosity looks like." It wasn't a full apology, but in family language, that was a start. That night, after he left, Mark leaned against the counter. "Well," he said, "didn't expect that turnaround." I shrugged. "Maybe humiliation works better than advice." He laughed. "You're ruthless when you're right." I grinned back. I learned from the best. We both looked toward Eli's room where tiny snores reminded us why all of this mattered. 2 weeks later, Mom called. "Your brother wants us all to do a dinner again. No remarks, no ego." I laughed out loud. "You sure he means our family?" She snorted. "Try to trust it once, Rachel. He's changing." Against every instinct, I agreed. The following Friday, we arrived with apple pie and worried hearts. Aaron greeted Mark first and asked about the garage instead of comparing it to anything. Progress. Eli ran up to show him a new drawing of an engine that looked like a spaceship. Aaron laughed. This kid might build a real rocket one day. Dinner was actually pleasant. No competition, no jabs. Halfway through, Aaron stood and cleared his throat. "Listen, I owe everyone an apology, especially Mark and Eli." The table fell quiet. He looked at Eli first. "I was wrong to say what I said. You should be proud of your dad. He builds things with his hands and his heart. That's something money can't buy." Then he turned to Mark. "You build respect. I just bought attention." Mark glanced at me, surprised. Then he said, "Thank you." Eli whispered, "It's okay, Uncle. Everyone messes up sometimes." Mom teared up. For once, it wasn't from frustration. After dinner, we stepped outside on the porch. Aaron joined us. He looked at the stars and said, "You know what's crazy? When I was Eli's age, I thought wealth was like those stars. You reached for one, and that's it, you win. Now I see it's more like gravity's pull. The more you chase it, the heavier you get." Mark nodded. "Sometimes success is just breathing without fear." Aaron smiled sadly. "Guess you were ahead of me on that lesson." For the first time in years, I didn't feel like his younger sister standing beneath him. We were eye level. Over the next few weeks, change stuck. Aaron called Eli to ask about school projects, donated to Mark's Garage Foundation for teen apprentices, and even showed up to help one Saturday morning wearing old jeans. The man who once wore success like armor showed up with grease on his hands and humility in his pockets. Eli looked at him in awe. "Uncle Aaron, you're helping." Aaron laughed. "Hey, turns out failure's not contagious after all." We all laughed. That night, as sunset bled into purple, Eli brought me a drawing, 2 figures fixing a car under a bright sun. He had written beneath it, "Success equals working together." I stared at it, feeling tears press my eyes. It wasn't just a drawing, it was a mirror showing everything we'd healed. I hugged him tight. "You keeping that for school?" He grinned. "Nope, for Uncle Aaron. He needs it more." And he was right, because that drawing would soon become the thing that finally broke my brother in the best possible way. The next morning, Aaron showed up at our place early, unannounced again, but this time his eyes weren't hiding competition. He held the drawing Eli had given him, folded carefully like it was made of glass. "Mind if I come in?" he asked. "Of course," I said. "Coffee's fresh. You'll like this roast, it's poor people fancy." He laughed quietly. I probably deserve that. Mark joined us, wiping grease off his hands from an early job. She's been waiting to use that line on you. Aaron smiled. I think I deserved that one too. He set the drawing on the table. I couldn't stop looking at this last night, he said. The message success equals working together. He's 10, but he gets something I never did. Eli peeked from the hallway and waved. Aaron waved back. Then his voice dropped lower. You know, when Dad died, I was angry because I thought he left me nothing. I didn't realize he left me the same thing he left you a choice. I just picked the one with bigger numbers. Mark said gently, numbers change. Character sticks. Aaron nodded. Yeah, and somewhere along the way, I traded one for the other. We spent the morning at the garage, all of us. Aaron insisted on watching, then helping. By noon, he was handing wrenches, asking questions, taking pictures not to post online, just to remember. He told Eli, buddy, one day if you ever start a business, hire me. I might finally learn what real work feels like. Eli grinned. Only if you don't call anyone a failure. Aaron laughed so hard he wiped his eyes. Deal. That weekend, a community reporter stopped by again, the same woman who'd covered the first event. She took pictures of Aaron covered in grease beside Mark, both smiling. The next day, the article headline read, Family Garage teaches more than car repair lessons in respect go a long way. Mom clipped the paper and framed it by her kitchen door. See, she said, my boy's finally behaving like adults. I teased back. Hey, one of those adults is mine by marriage. Eli, proud as ever, said, does that mean we're rich now? I winked. Rich enough to afford humility. A few days later, Aaron called me late at night. Rachel, he said, I turned down a promotion today. What? That's not like you. He chuckled. I know. It required moving out of state, long hours, no weekends, and no community. I realized all I've been chasing is applause. I want something that stays clapped in the heart, not the hands. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I said, Aaron, that might be the best decision you've ever made. He sighed in relief. I thought you'd talk me out of it. Not anymore. You've already learned the lesson I was dying for you to see. The next weekend, he asked if he could help sponsor Mark's apprentice program. At first, Mark refused politely. You don't owe me or anyone. Aaron smiled. I'm not paying a debt. I'm joining the team. They shook hands. Not a brother-in-law handshake, a business partner one. Eli yelled, Team Bennett Brothers! We all laughed. The sound filled every corner of that small garage like cathedral bells. One afternoon, I found Aaron sitting on the curb outside, watching Eli ride his bike. He said quietly, Do you think he'll remember that night forever? Maybe, I replied, but he'll remember what came after even more. He nodded slowly. I just don't want to be the reason a kid doubted his dad's worth. I said, Then don't be. Keep showing him who you are now. He gave a small smile. Working on it. That summer, the garage hosted another community day. Only this time, Aaron handled the advertising, Mom ran the food table, and Eli was the mini-host with a megaphone. He stood on a stool, shouting, Free checkups, respect optional but highly recommended. People laughed. Aaron leaned toward me and said, He's got your humor. I nudged him. And your loud voice. He grinned. Guess failure runs in the family, huh? We both burst into laughter. Later, a neighbor told me, It's crazy your brother looks happier covered in engine oil than he ever did in a suit. Yeah, I said, because this kind of wealth doesn't evaporate in a market crash. That evening, after everyone left, we sat outside, the air thick with barbecue smoke and mosquitoes that nobody cared about. Aaron took a sip of his soda, looked up at the fading sunset. You know, he said, for years I pitied you. Tonight, I envied your peace. I turned to him. Peace cost us a few dinners of humiliation, remember? He nodded. Cheap price, considering what it bought me. Then he pulled a small envelope from his pocket. I wrote something for Eli. Can you give it to him later? I arched a brow. Not another check, I hope. He smiled. No money, just words this time. Inside was a simple note written in block letters. Dear Eli, your dad isn't a failure. He's proof that success without kindness isn't success at all. Never forget the difference. Uncle Aaron. That letter ended up taped above Eli's desk. He reads it every week before a test, or when homework feels impossible. And every time I pass by that room, I whisper a quiet thanks not just to Aaron for changing, but for reminding me that forgiveness isn't letting someone off the hook. It's letting them climb back up beside you. And yet, The biggest lesson was still waiting, one Aaron didn't expect, because sometimes life decides to test how real your redemption really is. 3 months later, life was smooth enough to feel unreal. Aaron came by the garage every weekend. Mark teased him for owning more mechanic shirts than executives' ties now. Eli started teaching him small repairs, and every time Aaron learned something new, he'd shout, "I'm growing richer." We all laughed. One quiet Tuesday, Mom called. Her voice was shaky. "Aaron's been in an accident." The words hit like a punch behind my ribs. "He's fine," she added quickly, but his car flipped on the interstate. They said he swerved to avoid a delivery truck. We reached the hospital 15 minutes later. Eli clutched a small bag of cookies he'd baked his version of medicine. Aaron was propped up against pillows, arm in a sling, leg bandaged, face bruised but smiling weakly. "Guess I finally took failing to a new level," he whispered, trying to sound funny. Mark shook his head. "You scared everyone, man." Aaron winced. "I saw this truck cutting over, I just reacted." "You'd have done the same." I exhaled. "Don't make jokes about accidents. We're running out of free lessons." He chuckled softly, then nodded at Eli. "Hey champ, your cookies still cure people?" Eli grinned. "Only good people." The next day, the doctor cleared him to go home. We brought him to our house instead of his empty apartment. Over the following week, Aaron's arrogance peeled away completely. On the couch, he coached Eli through math homework, sometimes losing track of numbers, sometimes just staring out the window. One night, he said quietly, "You ever think about how thin all our second chances are? A few inches more, and that truck would have taken me out." "Don't waste this one," I replied. He looked at me. "I won't." A few days later, he asked Mark if he could officially invest in the apprentice program, not as a donor, but as staff. Mark said, "You mean work under me?" Aaron laughed. "Yeah, life's full of plot twists." So he did. And you know what? He became good at it, slow, careful, patient. Sometimes impatience crept in, but Mark would smile and say, "Half speed equals double wisdom." Aaron grumbled, but listened. Later that summer, the town hosted a community fair. Eli begged us to join. He wanted to set up a small booth showing how engines worked. Mark turned it into a school project display. Aaron helped design the poster, writing in big letters, "Failure is just success getting ready." Crowds gathered, kids asked questions, and journalists took photos. One woman leaned to me and said, "Your brother's story could make a great article." I smiled. "It already is, you're just watching the rewrite." Aaron overheard, laughed, and said, "Make sure the headline says former jerk learns empathy from 1-0-year-old." I replied, "Honesty gets clicks." That evening, as the fair shut down, the mayor gave a small thank you speech. He called our family up. Aaron limped slightly on his still healing leg. Mark wiped his hands and Eli dragged me along. The mayor smiled at Aaron. Sometimes a community's biggest progress happens one apology at a time. People clapped, not politely, lovingly. Aaron's eyes glistened. He whispered to me, "I don't deserve this much grace." I whispered back, "That's the point of grace." Afterward, he crouched by Eli and said, "Promise me you'll never measure anyone's worth like I did. Start by measuring their kindness." Eli hugged him. Deal. Weeks later, Aaron returned his SUV keys to me. "I'm selling it," he said, "getting something smaller, affordable. I don't need giant metal trophies anymore." I smiled. "Who even are you?" He grinned. "Work in progress." That night, Mark and I sat on the porch, quiet, watching lightning bugs flicker across the yard. He said, "It's strange. He's changed so much that the silence feels different now, peaceful instead of tense." I nodded. That's what real wealth buys you. A few months later, on Eli's 11th birthday, Aaron brought 2 gifts, a model engine and a small framed note. He asked Eli to read it aloud. "Dear Eli, remember what I told you when I was hurt? Second chances are gifts. Don't waste them on pride. You'll grow up in a world that loves money more than people. When that happens, fix hearts the way your dad fixes cars, with patience and grease on your fingers. Love, Uncle Aaron." Eli giggled. "Gross. Grease." Mark laughed. "That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my job." Aaron smiled, eyes shiny again. For a kid's party, the moment was oddly quiet, holy even. Eli said, "I think we're really rich now." Aaron laughed, "Richest in the neighborhood." That night, after everyone left, I tucked Eli in. He asked, "Mom, will you ever tell the story about Uncle Aaron?" I said, I just might. He yawned. Tell them what he said to me that night, too. I will, sweetheart. Every word. When he fell asleep, I went to the garage. Mark was cleaning tools, Aaron perched on the workbench swinging his leg carefully. I looked at both of them, the failure and the man who said it. And I thought, what the world missed calling failure, heaven probably calls learning. Aaron noticed. You okay? I nodded. Just thinking. You turned your own insult into a mission statement. He smiled. Not my first repair job here. Mark chuckled. At least this one didn't need new brakes. Sometimes I catch myself replaying that first dinner, hearing those awful words again, but now they land differently. Back then they hurt. Now they remind me how far we've come. The line that once silenced a room is now a story that fills it with laughter. And every time I post a new video, every story I tell, I end with the same truth. You can't choose your family's words, but you can choose the chapter they end in. So, if you've ever been called a failure, or made to feel small at your own table, remember, stand tall anyway. Their words are only powerful until your life proves them wrong. Hey, if this story made your heart tighten and then relax, you belong here. Hit that subscribe button right now and join us for more real stories about strength, family, and quiet wins that deserve to be louder than insults. Thanks for watching, and remember, failure can turn into fuel when kindness drives the engine.